believe it is, and was trying to get some directions and give some directions. And then I kind of told her to just that she said that the Lord had talked to her and put me in her spirit to be the one to kind of talk to you,
Hmm.
that I could be somebody that you could trust and not worry about the information being shared and gone uh, various different places.
Okay.
Because I pride myself on, from a pastor standpoint and then from a clinical standpoint, to be able to deal appropriately with people. And trust is a strong factor in being able to deal with people. But she didn't really go into a whole lot of details. I didn't really want her to. I wanted to just hear from you, hear your heart, and find out kind of where you are and what it is that we can share that can kind of help guide, our conversation as well as guide you in some areas of trying to get a resolve.
Okay. I mean, when it comes down to my family, I'm kind
What
of.
happened to your picture, man? What happened to your video?
I took it off because, yeah, this part.
No, man, we cool. We cool
Okay.
with that. You good? You
And
good?
and to be perfectly honest, I didn't, out of respect for you, I didn't want to be on camera indulging into my into a habit of mine, which
Okay. Well, you
yeah.
good. You good. We just talking today.
Okay. Now, when it comes down to my family, and this is the reason why I turned to my uncle Lace and know what I told him, because when it comes down to matters dealing with the family, I prefer to stay within the family. And this is the reason why I turned to him, and that was the discussion with him. Now, I mean, so that's to me, that's kind of a tricky matter to discuss outside of family members. But I mean, when it comes down to it, within my family, I have a bad reputation. Yeah, I'm gonna try to be as blunt as possible. I have a bad reputation, probably because of things that done happened in the past, and can't seem to shed that perception amongst family members. And when I go around family members, it's like, okay, they want to treat me in the perception that I was. You see what I'm saying? A perfect example would be my grandmother. Now, me and my grandmother, I love my grandmother, but me and her we've always had this up and down scenario. I mean, relationship. 1 minute is on, 1 minute is off. Same situation with my mom. 1 minute is on, 1 minute is off. But when it comes down to my mom, of course, that's my mom. She is, quicker and easier for her to be like me and to be try to mend. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
With my grandmother, it's not. She just don't cook. That's just the way she is. And I mean, I understand that's just her nature. But with me personally, it's not a good burden to bear. Being in that conflict with my grandmother, being in that conflict with my mom, being in that conflict with any member of my family, because the type of person I am. I am a person who prides himself and who feels like family is one of the most important backbones of not just us as black people, but as people in general. Without a strong family background, like you out here in this world by yourself, you tend to be lost sometimes. So, I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell when it comes down to the family. Now, me personally, I've been dealing with something for a long time. Feel like I have been gifted the gift of seers to be able to foresee things, and and this is where I am spiritually. Like I'm a Taurus, so the stubbornness of a bull. All my life, I've had the intuition that this is maybe a gift of mine, but the type of person I am is like, okay, it's hard for me to accept it unless I know for sure. And this past year, these past 365 days really gave me this, the certainty that I am, and I do have this gift. And if I do have this gift, And being the spiritual person that I am, I feel like it's a calling for me, something I'm supposed to do to, for God, for His sake, for whatever His purpose is with this gift. God gives people gifts so they can use it for, for Him, to uplift Him. And this is my interpretation of spiritual gifts and things of that nature. So that's where I'm at. I'm at the point where, okay, in my life, I'm 38, I'm like, I've grown into my mental maturity, my spiritual maturity. And at this point right now, to proceed, I have to be careful. In my interpretation, like, you got to be careful to proceed, because sometimes, like I tell my mom, sometimes I get in the spirit and I go to speaking about spiritual things. And, sometimes you got to be careful to not speak of spiritual things if you're not sure, if you're not for certain, because then misinformation, disinformation can get out and somebody might listen, hear it, and be led the wrong way. So that's where I am spiritually. I'm trying to, discernment have been coming up. My mom done spoke it. This young lady I've been speaking with, she been speaking of it. And to me, I think that's probably my biggest challenge spiritually right now, is to be able to suppress that. Well, not necessarily suppress, but to be, when I get into that spirit, when I get into that matter, to be careful. You see what I'm saying? And I don't know. I'm not in your, I'm not a professional. I'm not, I've never been in theology. So I don't know the realms in which I'm supposed to proceed spiritually. You see what I'm saying? And I'm right now, that's where I'm at. Like, what you gonna do? How you gonna do it? And this is the reason why I asked my mom to, not just about me personally, but me spiritually as well. You see what I'm saying? And I believe all of them, everything has had an effect. My spiritual calling has had a personal effect on my life. And if I'm not careful now, then it will continue to have an adverse effect on my life, the way it has. Mm-hmm. And another pastor, Pastor Beery, who was one of my pastors when I was young, I spoke with him, and he was like, man, once you accept it in your heart, then you proceed from there. Then God will show you the way from there. I'm like, okay. That's one thing I've been running from, is the acceptance of it. Because I'm like, if I'm right, I don't know what to do. If I'm wrong, then I need to leave it alone. You see what I'm saying? For me, the type of person I am, to be sure is for me to proceed without, fear or worry. So this is the reason why I asked my mom, because for her to try to have this conversation, this thing with me, it'll be more personal than spiritual. And at this point, I need a little personal, but more spiritual. Because, like I said, I think my spiritual stubbornness have had an adverse effect on my personal life. So for me to get in tune spiritually would open up the, personal, the positive effects that I'm looking to achieve.
Okay. All right. I got you. Let me kind of go back a little bit and piggyback off a couple things that you said, and then kind of help us to kind of frame this put a frame around this conversation. One of the things, and I think you really you've really kind of given your own diagnosis based upon where you are, which is when you're dealing about things of the spirit or the things of God, and there's something that God wants you to do, and we as individuals allow flesh to supersede what the spirit needs to be doing, there is an adverse effect. I mean, when you look at biblical terminology, when you look at the life of Jonah, you're familiar with the life of Jonah. Whenever there was something God wanted him to do, and he didn't want to do it, He gets on the ship, he goes the opposite way, storm comes, people are all affected, all kind of crazy stuff happens because of him not wanting to do what he knew God was calling him to do. So that lays right into what you were saying, the adverse effect. And so for you, it could very well be those strained relationships within the family, i.e. your grandmother, i.e. your mother and others, has a lot to do with a couple of things. Number one has to do with if God is using you and you're not submitting to the will of God in that way, so you act out or you engage in certain things that causes these confrontations. And like you said, with your grandmother, it's, all I can stand is I can't stand no more. I'm not dealing with him because of repeated behaviors, because of these things. So they've set themselves up to be in a position to guard from the hurt, from the frustration, from the past, all because of you possibly not submitting to what God has called you to do. So it's not really as much as you would say perception as much as it is their reality. It's their reality because of what they've experienced. And what a lot of people try to do is when we're on another page, on another side of some dilemmas or some frustrations, we tend to think that people automatically have come over to where we are. And it doesn't work like that. So say, for instance, if, I slap my wife and cuss her out today because I'm dealing with some frustrating situations and she triggered that and she caught the brunt of my frustration. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, we wake up and I'm like, hey, baby, how you doing? You know what I'm saying? Da, 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 da. It's this bipolar type situation. And she like, wait. Just because you've passed and gotten over here don't mean that I've moved over here. I'm still over here at the fact of you slapping me and cussing me out. You see what I'm saying? So you have to deal with where those individuals are in their own reality and what were the consequences or what was the behaviors that I contributed to them being there. And then we move toward that versus getting them to just accept, hey, I'm not who I used to be. I was in a bad headspace. I was in a bad place in my spirit. I was in a bad place, because of whatever the elements are. So you have that. So, but then when you move to this gift of the Spirit, that discerning gift, that calling from God, it doesn't matter what the particular area is. The principles of walking with God are still the same, be it a calling to preach, be it a calling to minister, be it a calling to serve, be it a calling to where he shares visions with you. The principles of that stays the same. And what are those principles? First thing is that God calls us to calls us to prayer. Mm-hmm. And when I say call to prayer, that means the time to seek an understanding of my relationship with him. That's the first call. Any pastor, any minister, any seer, anybody that works in ministry had the principles of, first of all, which is a call to prayer. And that prayer is my time to understand and commune with my relationship with God. This is way before we understand the gifts. This is way before you start trying to connect with the gifts. It's all about my intimate, personal relationship with God. When you go back biblically and you look at the relationship that Jesus had with his 12 disciples, mm-hmm. when he called them, I believe it's Matthew 10 or Matthew 12, the Bible says, and he called them unto himself and he gave them power. Mm. To understand the totality of that text, he says, it's him speaking, saying, I call them unto myself. In other words, he called them into a personal relationship with him. And for 3.5 years, they walk around with him, seeing things that he did, seeing the things where he opened blinded eyes, he did his miracles for the 3.5 years he was on the earth, and then they seen him die. Those 3.5 years was their time of preparation. So the first call is a call to prayer. Next call is a call to preparation, which is the training, the understanding of what is that God is asking you to do. Mm-hmm. And when you continue to look at the life of those disciples, each and every one of them, as individuals and collectively, was going through the same training module, trying to understand what it is they're supposed to be doing. And each one of them failed. Each one of them had opportunities to stand up and really embrace what they had, but they flopped. Because why? They were in training. They trying to understand. They're trying to prepare. Jesus dealt with each one of them. Each one of them, if you go back, and I know you've been around church enough, you done heard the Bible stories. Mm-hmm. Peter denied him mm-hmm. at the most critical time that he needed him. He was in training. But Peter still became the one that he said, upon this rock I'll build my church. Upon Peter, mm-hmm. upon who he is, I'm going to still do a great work in him. You look at Thomas. Thomas doubted and said, hey, no, that didn't happen to him unless I see the fingerprints in his hand. You know what I'm saying? Collectively, when he tried to heal, they tried to cast out the demons out of the young lady. And they said, well, why we can't do it? He said, well, this comes through fasting and praying. Each one of them in this training time, in this time of preparation, were all still trying to understand, Lord, what is it you calling us to do? What is it that you're prepared to do? And if any preacher, pastor, if any minister, anybody that sees vision and works in the gifts, if they will be totally, totally honest with themselves and with you, they would say to you, we all are still trying to understand what God is calling us to do. Okay. I've been preaching 29 years, man. I'm a fourth generation preacher pastor. I am still every day learning more about myself, about my calling, about what God is calling me to do. So that leads me to believe, even with all of my education, my undergrad, my master's, my doctorate, my training, clinicals, at the end of the day, no man knows God to the extent to be able to put God in a box. So which means what? That we are all still trying to seek an understanding of what it is he's calling us to do. So if you think somebody's going to give you this carte blanche, paper cookie cutter understanding of this is what you're supposed to do, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But what happens is that the first call, like I told you, was prayer, which means what? The closer I am with my relationship with God, mm-hmm. the more I understand and view the things that he's allowing me to go through in my guiding me and preparing me to be used by him. And then the last piece of the principle is the proclamation, which is my ability to walk in whatever it is God is calling me to do. Okay. So it all goes back, man, to personal relationship. Even now, again, we keeping it 100 with you. The things that you're doing, you know what I'm saying, as far as what man would say, this, that, and the other, smoke, drink, whatever. At the end of the day, we all got some areas. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We all got some areas. But there should be nothing that should allow you to not be able to be in tune with him. Okay. You feeling me?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It has to be that, man. It has to go back to your personal relationship.
No, I'm okay.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, because you touched on it a lot, and a lot of it sounds familiar. Now, when it comes down to, and there was the conversation with me and my uncle, it was like the perception of smoking marijuana, to be specific. Most older generation, they have one perception, and younger generation have another. My perception is probably similar to what you just said. Even though I indulge in these things, this is not hindering me from seeking the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding, from seeking God. Most people will beg to differ. Most people who have known me personally would always have begged to differ. But my strong stance have always been, it's not. You might not understand that it's not hindering me. I understand the effects of how it's hindering me spiritually. But physically, it's not hindering my ability to think and my heart. And as long as it's not hindering those things, then it's only going to be a matter of time before I walk away from it by choice. You see what I'm saying? And this is what I kind of gave my mom a little in-depth reasoning as to why I chose to continue doing it. You see what I'm saying? It was never because mentally or here I was broken. It was the physical things that was going on. Like I said, I don't like to talk about when it comes down to personal things because it'll tend to go to, pointing fingers. So that's why I try to avoid that when it comes down to my family. You see what I'm saying? But like I said, my whole point has always been it's not hindering me from thinking clearly. It's not hindering me from spiritually, like really seeking God. You might not understand that it has been a crutch, so to speak, but it also have been, a crutch. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to put it, because when you use a crutch, you use it because something's broken. My spirit wasn't broken. My mind wasn't broken. My heart was broken. And this is the reason why I use this crutch as like the smoking marijuana. I used it. And this is what I told my mom, like, I used it because my heart was broken. And I didn't want my emotions to hinder my mind. Because to me, my mind is more important than my heart at this moment. For me not to lose my mind is for me to always be able to come back and review my heart with a clear mind. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And this is what I've been trying to get my mom to understand. Like, look, I used it as a crutch because I was emotionally in a bad place when I started. Now I'm at the point where I am facing these emotional bad places. And I'm doing it from a place where I feel it's safe to do so. But the only person who would open up and listen is a mother. From all of these strained family relationships, the only person who would sooner or later, listen, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to answer the phone call, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to hear him. I'm going to try. And by her having, her personal relationship with God, I feel like it makes it even easier as my mother and as a spiritual person to, I'm still going to pick up the phone. I'm still going to be there for my son. Other people might not. Like my grandmama, she might not be quick to do that. My mom knows me a little more than my grandmother does from a spiritual standpoint. You see what I'm saying? Like you said, the only thing my grandmama is going off of is what has become her reality, that every time situations come up, me and her bump heads. Even though that's been the reality for my mom as well, there's always a mending of the fences moment that we try to have. You see what I'm saying? Because I love my mama as much as I love my grandmama. It's equal love because these have always been my parents, the people that I looked to for guidance, for wisdom and understanding, because I didn't have my father. I had father figures who taught me how to be a man, who taught me how to work, do things. But God, spiritually guidance and personal guidance has always come from the female figures in my life. My mom, my grandmama, my aunt, my mom's younger sister, my aunt, my grandmama's younger sister, my other aunt. All of these females have been there to personally guide me in certain moments. I've had men to teach me how to do things and be of a man. So now when you was talking about, because see, this is like, to be honest, it's kind of came. I don't know if it was me, because at a certain age, I'm trying to remember what specifically when that age was, and I remember I was walking out of my grandma's house, and I just stood in a driveway, and I was thinking about God. I was like, if it's something out there that I'm supposed to know spiritually and supposed to be aware of spiritually, then at this moment, this is what I'm looking for. Regardless of what I go through in life, this is my mind is looking for it. And I think it's probably because of how I am by nature. I'm intrigued, I'm curious when it comes down to knowledge that I don't understand. And from the times of me reading the Bible, I'm like, it's something that I'm not getting that I should get. So I started to not just spiritually to seek him, mentally speak him. And regardless of how it was perceived by other people, I was seeking him as well. And that you kind of touched on it. Like, look, this is just something you're just going to do. You see what I'm saying? But I've always done this, even though people might not have seen it. It's always been there. And this is the reason why I feel like I kind of beat myself up about it, because when I look at it, okay, it was stubbornness. It was, you know how you is, you ain't going to, I don't want to spread, I don't want to tell you information that is false. So for me to be sure is for me to walk. If all this time I'm not sure, I'm not going to take that step. You see what I'm saying? And these events that done happened, like I said, from the past year, makes me feel as if I'm sure now, I know without a shadow of a doubt. So, I mean, like I said, it was just speaking on what you were saying. Like, you going I can't hear you.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It was, speaking on what you were saying, like you're going to do it instinctively, intuitively. And this is something I even told my mama, like all this time, you would never have known, you would never have realized that this is what I was looking for. Even though these personal experiences, like you said, the stresses of these personal experiences, all you see is the reaction, the physical reaction, the reality reaction. You're not seeing where my mind is and where my heart is. And I told, she didn't listen. I remember, she don't even remember the moment I told her you would be a pastor, you would preach, you would have your own church. I told Mom, I remember we was driving down Bailey Avenue, right there at the light of Fortification. I was in the back seat. My grandmama was driving. My mama was in the front passenger seat. I said, Mama, you're gonna be a preacher one of these days, and you're gonna have your own church. She don't even remember me telling her these things. Even in those moments, the gift was working. I didn't realize it, and other people around me didn't see it because, like you said, the only thing they were seeing was the adverse effects, all of the extra stuff. Right. But me, God was operating in me even in that moment. Like I said, then I beat myself up because I feel like all this time I just been stubborn. Just, and like I said, I try to give a good reason, a good excuse for being stubborn. I didn't know for sure. So I wanted to be sure. I'm going to be sure. But I do feel as if I haven't been indulging in these habits that I would have received it quicker. You see what I'm saying? And that's where I'm at now. I'm at the point where I know for sure. But the thing about habits is they habits. You know what I'm saying? As bad as just biting your fingernails is a habit. As bad as you want to break it, sooner or later it's going to be something that triggers you biting your fingernail or you're scratching your head. You see what I'm saying? So,
It goes like you talk about. It's a habit. Yes, it is that. It has gotten that, and people have habits, but that's the end result. Mm-hmm. The end result of a habit starts back with a thought. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Everything starts with a thought, because you think it, then you speak it, and then you act on it, and then when you continue to act on it, it becomes your character and your behavior. Mm-hmm. So where somebody say, man, that dude a crackhead. Well, why is he a crackhead? Why you say a crackhead? Because he's smoking crack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's the behavior that he's demonstrating. That's what you're saying, the behavior. But you got to go way back to his thinking pattern. And so it goes back to the cognitive thinking pattern, which is, okay, well, what am I processing? What am I thinking? What am I avoiding? What am I trying to suppress? Why am I not, that ends me in such a behavior?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And so even with you doing that, or if I'm drinking, or if I'm cussing, or if I'm whatever those behaviors end up being that have this adverse effect, it goes back to a thinking pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at people that are in treatment for substance abuse, and they say, well, I don't have a drinking problem, I can stop whenever I want to. No, you don't have a drinking problem, you got a thinking problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because you feeling as though if I drink, then my mind is saying I feel better,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm avoiding certain things, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. It just makes me feel better, you know what I'm saying? Or it give me courage when I drink, you know what I'm saying? That courage you. So now I'm finna go holler at this old lady because now I'm feeling right. No, it's a cognitive thing. It's a thinking thing. It's a processing thing. And so, but it doesn't necessarily have to end up with a behavior that's adverse or negative or contrary. So what I'm saying in reference to all of that is you can still be smoking and doing whatever you're doing, and that doesn't deny God's ability to use you.
Right. Okay.
Huh?
I think the powerhouse missed the career in Newark.
Go see it. Look at the light. So you can. I mean, me being transparent, 100 pound for pound, I've gotten some great revelations early back in when I started preaching. Well, I was drinking,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff began to flow, and I'm like, man, wow, where is this coming from? And so we don't look at the substance as, because I'm doing this, it's stopping me, I'm hindering, I'm this, I'm that. That's very surface to me.
Okay.
That's very surface to me. What the nuts and bolts that I look at it is what's my personal relationship with God? How do God talk to me? How do I talk to God? You know what I'm saying? And it may be different for different people. Some people figure, that they need to be laying on their face and seeking the God 24/7 and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some other folks that just intuitively have a connection with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to figure out. That's how you and God have to work it. You know what I'm saying? God deals with me personally through visions, and then through various different vehicles. And what I mean by vehicles, I can be sitting here watching TV and watch a movie for 2 hours, and it's gonna be one thing in that movie that will trigger God saying or bring something back to my. Oh, okay. And then I'll turn right back around and get on a phone call conversation with somebody, and they'll say something. Like when I'm seeking for a confirmation, did I just preach the right sermon?
Mm-hmm.
Did I minister to somebody? Did I get the right thing out? And I'll fool around and get on Facebook or social media, scrolling on the wall, and somebody be done put a post that said something that I just got through saying. And then I step back and say, thank you, Lord. That's the confirmation I needed to know that what I said and what you need to do was in line with your word and your way. But that's my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to get to the point where your relationship with God and your communing with God and your communication with God is so intact that you know his voice. And you don't have to seek outside validation from your mama, from your grandmama, from your uncle, you will have a peace and an understanding to know this is what God is saying to me, and this is what God is charging or challenging me to do. So, because at the end of the day, the gifts come without repentance. So the gift is what's going to give God glory. And if God ain't glory out of the gift, he has a problem.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk about me specifically, and just in the spirit of being all the way 100. Like I said, now I'm questioning at this point. I'm questioning if the marijuana is hindering me. I'm not looking at how other people see it. I'm looking from an internal standpoint. Like, is it hindering me from completely receiving the message from God? And I'm gonna be honest. Mm-hmm. I feel as if it is. See, like I said, there's one thing for me to accept the fact that it's a habit. It's what I've already done, and I accepted the fact that I like it, which is makes it more habitual. You see, it makes it easy to walk away from. But at this point right now, I know financially it's hindering me, and spiritually I'm questioning it. Now, personally, it has already hindered me because, like I said, a lot of my family members under the impression this is the reason they've had I've been this way. But spiritually, I'm questioning if it's hindering me. You see what I'm saying? And to me, that's the most important part right now. And that's just being all the way honest. And I feel like I'm not going to really... I really feel like I'm not really gonna know for sure unless I quit. You know what I'm saying right now? Like you've been under the influence all this time, even though you feel like you've been getting beats and pieces. So if you was to quit now and just let it ride for a period of time and see if it's magnified without this, because God can't dwell in an unclean spirit. And to me, this is my habit and my inability to be discerned when it comes down to my mouth. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a person to hold their tongue. And I'm one of the person that if you make me mad, then you're going to hear why I'm mad and how I make you feel. If I love you, and this is what I told my mama, I will tell you the negative feelings as well as I tell you the positive feelings. If I tell you I love you, when I love you, in moments when I feel like I don't love you, I'm going to tell you the same thing. I'm going to be open and honest. So like I said, when it comes down to the habit, I'm questioning if it's hindering me spiritually, not really with these personal relationships. I feel like once my family, the people who is important to me understand that it's not, then those relationships will start to mend. But it's not going to start to mend unless I get this, spiritually to see if it is or it's not. You see what I'm saying? And if it is, then definitely, that'll be the other reason. That's to walk away. Financially, it's hindering me. If personally, it's hindering me. Now, if spiritually, if it's hindering me, I definitely I want to back. I definitely got to back off. You see what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at about it.
I say you spot on, man. I say you spot on. And I say that because of what you shared, but I also agree when it comes to whatever may be a vice for somebody. Mm-hmm. It could be a woman. Mm-hmm. It could be a man. It could be any kind of behavior. What you really described right then was, okay, you know what? I need to fast. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And fasting, though, is not always food.
I know, right? Because, see, I've been trying to, and it's funny because I really just got off a food fast. I spent this weekend you know what? I'm not going to eat for a couple of days. No food, just drink. Coffee helps to kill the appetite. So I'm going to drink coffee, I'm going to drink water, but no food. And as easy as it was for me to go without food, it's hard as whatever for me to go without this.
Yeah. So
it's a vice. So at this point, I'm like, look, dude, this is your biggest vice right now. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So that has to be what you fast from, because when you fasting from that, it also.
Somebody call me.
Old used to say fasting was just, you don't eat food. Mm-hmm. No. When you grow spiritually, you realize fasting can be from anything. Some people got to fast from Facebook. Mm-hmm. Some people got to fast from cussing or fast from whatever those areas that's dominating us. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Is the areas where we suppress. And fasting is denying the flesh so that you can get more of God.
Right.
To get closer to God. And the only way you make it through that period of fasting is when you feel those cravings, you be like, Lord, I need you to help me. It's time to pray. I got to pray. I got to get my head right because I don't want to fall or I don't want to stop my fast.